Hi guys, I'm Kristen. This is Kristen is Fully Booked. Today I'm going to be doing a very long overdue recent reads video, but I thought I would do it in conjunction with updating my Goodreads account, which is also very out of date. I mentioned in some past videos lately that I had really been struggling with just like scheduling and filming and uploading on a decent time and everything with the new puppy. So this recent reads video is very long overdue. The last recent reads I did was in July, which was also like a really overdue one. So I'm just struggling with wrap-ups in general this year. So I thought I would go through and update my Goodreads account and just kind of tag you guys along while I do that. Very informal. I don't want to do like a lot of information on each book because some of these I read back at the end of July. So let's just get into it. If you can hear my laptop, my poor laptop like really struggles. It's like slowly dying because the editing software that I have is just like way too advanced for the quality of the laptop. So if you can hear it, I apologize. And as well, Poppy is just chilling with a really tasty chew toy. So you can probably hear her as well. I apologize. So I wrote down everything that I needed to update with you. I will actually start with my DNFs and my rereads before I get into that because I'm not going to be logging those into Goodreads anyway. So I have 2 DNFs since I last touched base with you. Both of these books actually I mentioned in that last recent reads video, one of which was the first binding. I just never went back to it. I think I got 8%, maybe max 9% into that book, and it was just so melodramatic. It felt like a chore a little bit to pick it up every time because I just was not really into it, and all of the promises that eventually it got really good with the storytelling part just wasn't enough of a draw to keep at reading or trying to read that book. So never finished it, never got past 9% on that one. Didn't work out for me. Another DNF that I had was Silver Queendom, and this was just, I think, like not the right book at the right time for me. I don't think that I'll go back to it because it wasn't, like there were some things that I just wasn't really all that drawn into. I felt like the characters weren't fully developed, or at least we weren't given all the information about all the characters. So it was like acting as if we had this established character traits and established relationship interplay and dynamics and things like that when they really weren't. And so it made me feel like I was just missing information and missing that like, oh, I do know these characters kind of a feeling, and it just kind of kept not happening. It is a heist sort of story. It's like a group of thieves and con men. Didn't finish it. That's unfortunate. I did do a ton of rereads since I last checked in with you for various reasons. So I reread, like over the course of like July, August, and September, I reread both Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth in order to like be refreshed on all of the facts and what we know going into Nona the Ninth, which I'm currently reading. I did do like a what do you need to know before picking up Nona the Ninth video, so you can check that out if you are planning to read Nona. And just kind of summarizing all the things that I was able to piece together along with the help of Taylor on my rereads of those. I also read The Ruin of Kings, which is for a secret project that is like really backburnered at the moment, but I reread that, absolutely loved it. Such a great series to reread. I can't wait to like reread that series again in the future. I only read the first one, but it's going to be an amazing reread series, absolutely. And all 3 of those books, Gideon, Harrow, and The Ruin of Kings, I read on audiobooks, and they were all amazing, like absolutely amazing audiobooks. And then of course, over the month of August, I was rereading A Song for Arbonne by Guy Gavriel Kay, which was a read-along that I was doing over the course of the month. I had such a great time with that. It was so lovely to see everyone's reactions to things and over to the book itself over the course of the month on the Discord. I had a really great chat with Sarah from the channel Bright and Bookish and Kate from the channel Kate Coy for our live show, so you can check that out if you are interested, or if you've read that book, want to see what we thought about it, or come back after you finish reading it. Okay, so let's get into the months now. So there were a few books that I read at the tail end of July, and that all had to do with the T. Kingfisher Readathon that I was part of. At the very end of July was the last 10 days for Sarah's channel Bright and Bookish. So I did do a reading vlog, and it was actually the week that I got Poppy, And I only managed to read 3 books for that, and that was Bryony and Roses, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I also read Nettle and Bone, which is one of her new releases this year, which is a unique, like, new fairy tale. And I also read, what was the last one? Paladin's Grace, which is the beginning of a series. It's kind of like a fantasy romance series. So I have already talked about those books in that vlog. You're welcome to check those out there. I'll just say in general that I enjoyed each of these books, but I feel like none of them were like a new favorite, or they didn't like blow me out of the water in the way that I was expecting. I did really enjoy Bryony and Roses. Actually, I think it might be one of my favorite Beauty and the Beast retellings now. It's like quite simple. It's a very short retelling of that story, but I think it's the one where she kind of manages to skirt around the whole Stockholm Syndrome thing the best. Nettle and Bone I thought was great. I just wanted it to be a little bit darker, to be honest. I guess I was expecting it to be darker, and I liked that there was like the lighthearted, distinct T. Kingfisher comedy or like humor in it, but I think that the dark moments I wanted to go even darker. And then Paladin's Grace, I don't remember what my issues with Paladin's Grace were. Great meet cute, that's what I remember about Paladin's Grace, but that I wasn't really sold 100% on the intensity of the feeling in the time frame and the amount of interactions that they actually had. So there, that is my T. Kingfisher. I think I have actually already logged all of these ones. I will check on Goodreads. Yeah, I did vlog these ones in that time. So we'll go from there. So then after that, in August, the only book that it was a new read in August was A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Okay, I'm gonna take off her collar so that the bell sound stops. So in A River Enchanted, it is kind of set in like adjacent to the real world. And this guy, when he was like 10 or 11, Jack was sent away to the island, sent to the mainland to be schooled to become a bard. And in his like early 20s, he's called back by the, I want to say Laird because it was so obviously Scottish influence, but I don't remember if it was actually called Laird. I think it might have been. Girls on his side of the island, girls from their clan, are going missing, and this bard is called back to the island to help solve the problem. I wanted to like this book. I wanted to like this book a lot. There's 2 romances. There's sort of like the young kid romance, the early 20-year-olds, and then there's like a more mature grown-up romance as well of a married couple whose daughter is one of the kids that goes missing. And actually the adult romance, like the married couple, was so much more of a beautiful romance and relationship. I felt like it had like a much bigger draw, but I think where the biggest miss for me was here is actually on the atmosphere spectrum. I could really tell that the author wanted this setting to be like so spectacular, and I think like when you hear about it, when you describe it, it does sound really cool, and I just wanted so much more. I felt like the actual like the words and the actual writing and the construction of the sentences, like there was something there that was missing for me in terms of creating atmosphere of this like beautiful, whimsical, kind of Scottish-esque like land that is constantly changes if you go off the paths and things like that. I wanted so much more from that than what was given in the actual like use of language being used. I'm gonna give it a 3. I was interested where it left off, but I'm not certain if I will pick up the second book. I'll say that it's not like a huge priority. If I'm in the right mood, if it's available at the library in the moment that I look it up, when I'm feeling it, then I will read the next one. Oh, I'm gonna share my like actual ratings with you today since I'm going through Goodreads anyway. Scandalous. Okay, then we're getting into September. So as I said, obviously I was reading other things in August as well. They were all just rereads. So the things I think that you guys already have heard me talk about before. So then in September, in no particular order, I read Spells for Forgetting. I'll get that out of the way. And have I logged this already? I think I did. Oh no, I didn't. Oh shoot. Okay. Spells for Forgetting, I'm going to give a 4. I think it's like a solid 4. I think that it could easily be a 3 for some people, and I think it will probably be a 5-star for other people. For me, I think it was just like, this was good. I really liked this. There were things that were missing with the plot and with the characterization that didn't quite, or that prevented it from reaching that 5-star new favorite status for me. I did do a full review for this. We were following August and Emery, and 15 or 14 years ago, there was a fire at this orchard on this island, which is like I think it's a fictional island off the coast of Seattle, set in the real world. And after the fire, they find the body of this girl, Lily, in the woods, who is Emery's best friend. And for reasons, August is the prime suspect. However, there was never enough evidence to actually charge him or convict him or anything like that. So, but around this time, obviously, everyone in the town is like convinced that August did it, and he and his mom are run out of town. And the book starts with 14 years later, he's showing back up on the ferry back at Saoirse Island with the remains, or the cremated remains of his mother, to spread or like bury her ashes. There is a bit of a murder mystery as we're trying to figure out what happened, like what actually happened with Lily. There's that like lost love, angst of August and Emery seeing each other for the first time after 14 years. There is like dark, eerie, ominous vibes, very small towns, dark secrets. It had a lot going for it, but I think just like Emery and August didn't feel like full realized people outside of their relationship. And the murder mystery element, I think, had some predictable elements to it. I won't say it was 100% predictable, but I will say that there were some things that were predictable, and the ending was a little bit too quick, a little bit too rushed for me. Overall, like I really enjoyed, like loved the experience of reading it, but when I was finished, and it didn't quite stick with me in the way that I would have expected for how intensely I was feeling at some points throughout the book. Also in September, I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is a contemporary romance about, and it's long enough ago, I guess that all of the names are here. Alex Montgomery is a fancy doctor, an emergency medicine doctor, part of like this fancy legacy at a hospital, and on her way home from a great aunt's funeral or something, she gets a flat tire, she goes into the ditch to avoid a raccoon, something like that, and she's pulled out of the ditch by this guy, Daniel, who is a small town local of the small town that she's passing through. Events arise that they really connect, and they have kind of a one-night stand, and the two essentially like sort of start casually seeing each other. She's very upfront that she's like coming out of a bad situation, and she does not want any sort of commitment, but it's very clear that Daniel does want commitment. I really loved it. I'm going to give it a 4. I think it would be like a 4.5. You know, if I was like being really specific. I actually really enjoy books that focus on recovery from domestic abuse. I don't have any personal experience with that, but I do have sort of peripheral experience to that. And I really appreciate when it is not such obvious cases where like, well, obviously that woman should leave that situation, or obviously that person should leave that situation. I like that there are so many romances now that explore the subtleties of things that we wouldn't necessarily automatically think of as abuse, things that are so clearly abusive, but that are difficult to explain to people from the outside, and why you can't just get over that, or like, oh, well, he's, you know, having stress, like whatever. I really enjoy books that are like this. This makes me think of, what was that book I read by Beth O'Leary, The Flat Share? Similar kind of thing, but I do think that I liked this one actually a little bit better, to be honest. So anyway, Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Absolutely loved this, and I think Kristen Craves Books is the channel that I heard about this from, and she's been telling me to read this for ages, and absolutely, I'm so glad that I did. Okay, then I read The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. What did I know about it going in? I knew that it was about this guy named Hart who was some sort of like ranger type of thing, and he keeps running into this girl, Mercy, who's runs her family, or is running her family's undertaking business of all things. So there's like a little bit of like a Western vibe is what it was described as. The two hate each other whenever they interact with each other in real life, and then situation arises that they accidentally become pen pals and fall in love with each other through pen pals, a la You've Got Mail, I guess. I really wanted to love this book, and I did mean to do a review, and I just never got around to it. So maybe if I feel like I don't have enough time to say everything, or if I think about things that I want to say, Or if you're interested, let me know and I will totally do a review for this. I'll just say there was like not quite enough there. The world building was very sparse, very, very sparse. It would describe these words, it would just like say these words like, oh, they're going around and they're like auto duck or whatever. And you're like, well, it's a truck, right? Like you're picturing a truck. And nothing is ever said for like 75% of the book to lead you astray from picturing them driving around in trucks that they're just calling auto ducks or whatever. And you're like, okay, quirky world building. And then at some point it describes like sitting out in the water in the duck. And I'm like, wait, is it a boat? And then it did describe the world as being islands, but it never really talked about water or the islands. It introduced these unique words, but it never explained what they looked like, what they were. I guess it explained a little bit of their function, or like there was, from context, you could figure out what the function was, but it was just a little bit missing there. The relationship is something that you so genuinely don't care about until the 50% mark. And I've seen this consistent with other people as well. There's something that happens at the 50% mark. It's not like a unique event. It's not something like that moment did it. It's just sort of like you sort of at around the 50% mark realize that you suddenly start caring a lot about the relationship so much more. And I think it's I would say that it has to do with some emotional like growth and like opening up and peering into the corners of Hart's little heart and his feelings and stuff like that. I would say like that's the moment when it starts to feel that you like really, really care. It didn't sell me on the enemies thing. They say pretty crazy things to each other. Like all of their interactions are just like so bananas, where they just feel so antagonistic for absolutely no reason. It does do like a flashback or an explanation of like the very first time that they met. And you can see that like, yeah, that situation didn't go well for reasons, but it didn't really explain how their personalities just like totally seemed to switch when they were in contact with each other. But I did really, really care by the end of it. So I don't know. It was like a really, really weird reading experience, because I like wanted to love it so much, and it was quirky, but it wasn't quirky in like this was a well realized quirk. It wasn't quirky done extremely well, but then you kind of cared. It was surprisingly steamy. I don't know. This is such a weird book. Like I want to give it anywhere from a 3 to a 4.5. Like that's how I feel. What's that in half? Like 3.75? I think I'm gonna give this one a 3. I would, if I was like really, really solid giving it like a percent, I would give it a 78%. That's how I rate books in my head. Then, just recently, I've been working on these books for a while, but I finally finished The Fifth Element. You guys, I did like a YouTube poll way back in maybe August at some point, and asked like what was the next book I should pick up, and you guys out of the park voted for The Fifth Element. So I have been reading it ever since. It was just a very slow read for me. Oh my god, The Fifth Element, what have I been saying? The fifth season. I even wrote down element. The fifth season by N.K. Jemisin, the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy. I'm gonna give it a 4. I think probably for me, like a low 4, not quite 4.5. Oh, yeah, low to mid 80s. I don't know why, but I always feel like I need like a 100-based system, or at least at minimum a 10-point scale to talk about books. Low 80s. Low 80s is where I would put this. The writing, absolutely astounding, right? Like very, very, very good writing, without a doubt. Is it the writing for me? I'm not sure. I don't necessarily think so. I did pick up on some of the elements of the 3 characters that we're following. We're following like a young girl, we're following like a 25-year-old woman, and then we're following someone in there I would put into like the 40s, all at different times, and after this like cataclysmic kind of event. I didn't find it as scary confusing as people make it seem. I'm sure that I'm missing things, right? Like I don't follow the science of everything that's happening and all of that, but I'm also someone that doesn't necessarily care if I don't understand everything, so maybe that worked out for me. I am interested in continuing on, but I don't think it's super high priority for me. I don't think I will finish it before the end of the year. Then the very last thing that I finished recently was Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. This is a YA new release. It was supposed to have like, what's that called? What's that? The Cruel Prince vibes with an enemies to lovers thing with this girl who is a priest, no, not a priestess, a seer within the for the kingdom, and she just lies. Sometimes she makes them up, and I thought that was a fun vibe, and that they were supposed to have like, you know, hate you, sexy tension sort of thing. I think I'm gonna give it a 3, and again in my head it's probably like a 3.75. I don't know, when you have like a 3.75, do you just round up from that? I think people round up even from 3.5. Okay, I'll put down 4. I'll put down 4 because in my head it's like a 3.75, and I guess that's high enough that it really should just like be counted as a 4. When I saw the thing about, I'll even read it. Violet is a prophet and a liar, influencing the royal court with her cleverly phrased and not always true divinations. Honesty is for suckers, like the oh-so-not charming Prince Cyrus, who plans to strip Violet of her official role once he's crowned at the end of the summer, unless Violet does something about it. Okay, but here's the thing. I kind of pictured her as being like a little bit bitter about the world. I pictured her kind of in like a boozy, like I pictured her a little bit boozy. I know this is YA, maybe I shouldn't have, but just with that, I thought she was going to be kind of someone like, yeah, angry and bitter about the world, doesn't really care about her job anymore, you know, just makes stuff up for fun and to cause drama. Like, I thought that was the vibe that we were going into, and that's what I wanted. I thought it was going to be really fun. I also kind of wanted her and the prince, like, again, this is the expectations. I wanted her and the prince to be like, really like don't get along, but also like secretly sleeping together in the background or like making it or whatever. Again, I think what I wanted it to be was an adult book and not YA, but just all of those things were wrong. Watching the relationship between Violet and the Prince Cyrus was like having whiplash, or like watching a tennis match where you're like, they hate each other, they're into each other, they hate each other, they're making out. And I had seen some reviews that said that beforehand. I was like, ooh, but maybe that's fun. And it wasn't. It wasn't fun in that sense, because it doesn't track always. That being said, I totally got the why they kept falling apart was because of trust, because they just like genuinely do not trust each other. They're into each other. There's maybe more there, but they just distinctly do not trust each other. And that played into the fallout of everything, but it did so in a way that was like off, on, whatever. So it didn't work in that sense. Other than that, the world building was really, really tough to follow. It was just a little bit of a chaotic read. It was just a little bit chaotic. I wanted it to be really good. I enjoyed elements of it. I definitely got to like the 80 to 90% mark and just like totally put it down and didn't finish it for like 2 weeks at least, because I just like didn't really care, and then I was going to lose my library hold, so I quick went and finished it. I just haven't been enjoying YA lately. I just have not been enjoying young adult the last year and a bit, I guess. So I wanted to like this one. I really liked the sound of it. I liked the setup, but it was more YA than I think what I'm in the mood for, and it might be a debut as well, so I feel bad kind of trashing on the world building and stuff like that, but it just didn't work for me. I'll say that. 3.75, I've got it down as a 4. That's maybe pushing it, but that's what it is. Okay, so what am I currently reading? I think what I have as my currently reading books on this are just so out of date. Yeah, it's the ones that I have here are the ones that I talked about in my end of the year video, where I was like, ooh, I have Malice, This Vicious Grace, and The Prior of the Orange Tree. I have on the go, but I've had on the go for like several months. So technically I don't actually have This Vicious Grace and Prior of the Orange Tree like on the go. I'm not actually currently reading those, but I do plan to go back. What I've got on the go right now, technically Malice, and actually I have to finish that very soon. I think I'm really close. I've got to be at least 90% of the way through that book. I'm also reading Unconquerable Sun by Elliot right now. This is the book club pick for our new book club, the book checkout. I will link our Discord and everything that you need to know down below. We're going to be doing the live show sometime probably like mid-October, so I have a little bit of time to finish it, which was kind of what we were going for with this book club, is that the books are actually going to be every other month. So there's no pressure to like finish this by the end of September because there's another book that I'm going to have to pick up. That's not the case. I've got a buffer month in between. So I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's just sci-fi as an audiobook is really tough for me. I could be reading it like physically or like the ebook, but I don't have a lot of time to do ebook reading right now, so I've been prioritizing other books for ebook reading that I can't, or that I don't also have access to audiobooks for. And just, I really struggle with sci-fi world building. So I'm struggling a little bit with it, and I'm not connecting with the main character's son, but come to the live show if you want to hear full thoughts on that one for me. I'm also currently reading both The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik and Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Both are very different books from the previous two books in those respective series. The Golden Enclaves so far is different in a way that I'm not enjoying, and Nona the Ninth is different in a way that's just like, what is this? So I'll leave you with that. Hopefully I'll be able to get those books, both of those, finished up soon, and then I will update you on how I'm feeling with those ones. Anyway, that is it for now. I hope, and I think this was actually super long of a video. I hope this was not too much of a chaotic mess and a horrible process for me to edit. What are you reading right now? What have you got coming up next? Is there anything that you absolutely need to prioritize before the end of the year? Are you already like shaping out like, you know what, I like this, but next year, I'll come back to this series later? Or are you like, oh no, I need to finish up all of my unfinished series right now? I am a little bit of both. I'm kind of sticking to that like, these are the 12 books I have to read right now list, because 3 books a month more and more is becoming like, ooh, that's gonna be tough. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. I will see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.